BooBaes. BooBaes.
Hello and welcome.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
Great. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a day. Had a flat tire before coming here.
On your brand new car?
I know,
How?
right? There was a
Construction.
nail, literally, and that's what the people who were fixing it, they were like, we've been getting it a lot here lately with all that
Yeah.
construction going on. So yeah.
It was like free, right? Was it covered?
Um
Did they patch it?
Oh yeah. Like yeah.
I was like, I would be pissed if I just bought a car and then I got a flat tire and they were like, ooh, buy a new wheel or a tire.
No, yeah, thankfully I didn't have to. I think it was just patchable. But yeah, that was like after a long day of work, it was like, oh, okay, yay. That throws everything off a little bit. But it's okay. We're here.
We're
We made
here
it.
and we're
good.
alive. And well, my name is Caitlin.
And I'm Joshua.
That's right. And this is a podcast not about tires, but about
Horror movies.
horror movies. That was a horror of real life.
It
Now
was.
we are in the cinematic universe of horror.
That could be turned into a horror movie somehow.
Yeah, flat tire.
Flat tire, side of the road. There's lots of possibilities.
Oh, that's like 18 horror
It's
movies
horror
already.
movies, or like going to a tire shop, but like deadly murderous tire shop.
Oh yeah, and the tires come to life and
Yeah.
eat you.
Like Bates Motel, but like tire shop.
Oh, okay, so like a person. I'm thinking like the
monster
tires.
movie.
Yeah,
See,
come
there's
to life.
so many different like avenues that you can take with it.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood, where are you at again? Let's start this timer.
90 is out.
Welcome though to
BooBaes.
BooBaes. That's right,
Your
horror movie spectacular.
showdown, where we get to talk to you about our favorite and maybe not so favorite horror movies.
Today we are talking about one of my favorites.
Yeah,
Yeah,
up there.
absolutely.
I mean, it's great.
Absolutely fucking love this movie.
It's pretty good. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about Get Out.
That's right. We thought for the month of
Since
February.
Black History Month, we would
Yeah.
be covering some black cinema, or just movies filmed by people,
black producers,
black producers, just
bunch of and so, and of course, highlight them throughout the
of
year
course.
as well. But
yes.
definitely take the time to make a special note
Yeah, exactly.
this month. So yeah, Get Out, directed by
Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele.
I love
Yeah.
how he's said that at the same time.
You're ready, Jordan. Like, oh man, ever since he stepped into this world of producing, he has just been phenomenal. And I will admit, like, whenever I heard originally that he was going to be directing this, I was like, what? You mean like Key and Peele? Like that Jordan Peele?
Yeah.
And then I researched him a little bit more and was like, oh, okay, he's like actually, I mean, he's a huge horror fanatic. And so it was.
He is. Yeah. And I think also too, because I mean, in you're not far off. I also had the same thought, because it's like, I mean, we know him for doing comedy, and so, but then like,
this movie is a perfect mesh of comedy, but then also
it does, which
horror.
most horror movies do try to weave in some kind of comedy or something to kind of, because you have to have tension. You can't have it be like the whole at 100 the whole entire time. But I feel like because of his perspective in comedy as well, like he comes at it with like this whole other perspective of like being able to like really tell a story that is like truthfully like horrifying, but like in a way that's like not like it's someone like really like a slasher or like this or that. It's like it's very meta,
it's unsettling.
Mental horror. What is it called? Remember we just talked about it in Scream, the new Scream, and what's it called?
Like a new.
Yeah, like more just horror. Elevated horror. Yeah.
Elevated horror.
Exactly.
It's like I was reading some of the what the fuck is it called? What's that tomato place? Rotten Tomato. I was reading some of the Rotten Tomato.
Yeah.
It is classified as a horror comedy.
Okay. And
it got 98% for the tomato meter. So that's pretty fucking high.
He's like literally almost 100%.
86% is the audience score. But like all of this critics' consensus, it starts with funny, scary, and thought-provoking. And I don't know, like the comedy is there, but I don't
see why they would lead with funny, but I think it's because obviously he was in comedy before. Maybe that's why they do that. And I'm sure it's kind of like
Because the comedy was like, there were some parts where, yes, this is hilarious, but it's so like subtly woven in that I am not.
Where you just said
fixated
thought provoking, I'm like, that should be the first.
Yes.
Like, should be the opener, because that's literally what it is.
There's so much.
And also, it's like not
symbolism.
That's what I wanted to point on, is that like it's not even necessarily funny in the way like they're cracking jokes necessarily. It's just also like it's irony and comedic, because like it's the way that this talks and touches a lot of like social-ish topics and like kind of things that are a little bit more like taboo, like racism and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just kind of like, it almost even like, as we see like the white people throughout this movie, like they're laughable because it's like so real.
Yes.
Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like in a sad but like funny way. Like
you're watching it and you're like, oh, this one never happened. Then you think and you're like, oh, that does happen.
Literally people like
and
this.
And it has literally happened for years. I do think I liked this review. It just says very clever, brilliantly written, and wonderfully uncomfortable neo-horror movie, challenging racial stereotypes and viewer expectations with almost every scene. This is a audience review. It's just someone named Jen S., super reviewer. But I thought that was a really well-worded review. But anyways, we're not here to focus on tomatoes.
Yeah, we're here to focus on booze.
That's right. We are.
Booze and booze.
Booze and booze.
Oh.
Also, did you know that there's something called Feast of the Ass? And it's like it's a Christian holiday. Happens on January 14th.
What's like a donkey? Right? I'm assuming that's what you mean, an ass.
Yes, it is. And it's something about, primarily in France, is a byproduct of the Feast of the Fools, celebrating the donkey-related stories in the Bible.
Oh.
But yeah, they called it Feast of the Ass. And I was like, wow, y'all couldn't have chose any other name for
really?
that?
I mean, come on now. Someone knew at some point what they were doing with it.
Sorry, that was like Side note, last thing I had searched.
That's what everybody, I'm not even, why?
I was trying to see how much a donkey weighed.
Oh,
actually,
okay.
I was trying to
Related
see how much
searches.
a blue whale weighed.
Yeah.
And then I was like, how much does a horse weigh? And then I was like, what about a donkey? They range from 180 to 1,100 pounds.
That's
quite a difference.
Huge like window of weight.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyways,
we gotta circle back because we will do this all night. Yeah. So, okay.
Out.
I'm glad that we already know where the rating of these booze are gonna go from the get go. All right, guys, let's go home. 4 booze. JK. Yeah. So we basically start off with meeting our. Is it a protagonist? Yeah, it's a protagonist. Yeah, our main character.
He's not. We start with Dre, lost in the suburbs.
Oh yeah, that's right. And he's on the phone, and he's
with his girlfriend. He keeps saying "babe" and stuff, and he's like saying like, "I feel like I stick out like a sore thumb here," like and he's already said something like, I already know what they do to people like me out here. And
it's already making you suspicious. So like,
too affluent. Like,
because then that car just shows up and is like parking in front of him or behind.
It's tailing him, like very slowly creeping along, and then playing the like almost 30s like tiptoe through the tulips vibe kind of music. I don't know exactly what.
I don't know what it was either, but I get what you mean on the vibe.
And as we find out at the end, when Homeboy pulls off in that same white car, that was Jeremy trailing him. So Jeremy is the brother.
Yeah.
I had never put that together because I'm a dumbass.
I didn't
until watching it this time, and then I was like, "Oh, that's fucking Jeremy." I'm so dumb.
I'd only seen it one time.
There was so much that. Oh, I saw it twice. I saw this movie twice in theaters.
Okay.
I loved it. And then I watched it on Sunday.
Okay.
With Nance. And Maria, and then Happy Birthday, Maria!
Happy birthday, Maria! Shout out.
And then it's also my best friend Malin's birthday.
Happy birthday, Malin.
Yesterday was my brother's birthday.
If I had a button I could have pushed, I'd push it right now. You rock. Happy birthday.
You rock.
There we go.
But even like, so watching it just on Sunday and then watching it again this morning.
Gotcha.
I was like, there's so much I missed on Sunday.
There's so much.
And this is like my at least 5th or 6th time seeing it.
Yeah. Well, and don't you love a movie? And that's a good movie, I believe, too, where if you can keep watching it, you pick up on something that you didn't even
there were 4 things that I picked up on this time that I was like, I've never fucking noticed that. Like, there's so many parts of my notes where I just go, oh.
It just makes things make more sense. It's like, oh, wow, like they really were intricate and thought about.
So intricate.
What they were doing.
Very, very well planned out. And then I was wondering if somehow Candyman now has some relation to this same universe, because like they both happen in New York, and they're both, I would not put it above him to have made it so thorough to where they can connect. Because then Candyman, he was also a photographer, right?
And everything.
And Chris is a photographer.
And everything nowadays too has to belong to like some sort of universe, or like blame Marvel or metaverse. But like, it's just, it's profitable, and it's just like, you know, I mean, it's just creativity, you know, it's like being able to create like world building almost, you know. Yeah. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
But I didn't catch that, and I didn't think about that. Was there a certain point that like made you think about that, or just because he produced Candyman as well? Or?
Oh yeah, just because he produced it. And then I was thinking, like, I was sitting there when I was rewatching it, I was like, oh, well, he's a photographer, and they're in New York as well, and kind of same vibe.
You could see
like,
them meshing. Yeah, you could very easily.
Like one
happening in the same world universe.
So I don't know if it does, but I just think that would be cool. And I do think Jordan Peele has enough foresight to have planned for that in this movie even.
Or at least I probably, like, if he doesn't do it, he was like, well, you know what, I'm gonna leave that option available just in case I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
It'd be a nice, smart, easy route. But yeah, so we're basically following Dre. He gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
And
abducted
in plain sight.
Snatched.
It is dark, mind you, but it's in an affluent suburb, and you know that the white motherfuckers are nosy as hell.
And they're watching.
All of them are at their little blinds,
literally,
through,
probably.
And they're like, "Oh, can we buy him next?"
Talking about it to each other, like, from across.
Did you see what just happened across the street?
The landlines.
Yeah.
Literally.
They're in their little aprons.
I could literally still see them having landlines.
Yeah. Oh, yes, 100%. But then it flashes, and the opening music here of the like plucking strings that like
was so good,
phenomenal
throughout the whole movie. The choice
score is
of
beautiful
and even the placement of where everything's at as well.
Because some of them really did scare the fuck out of me. There was one part where I jumped because of the score.
Yeah,
and also the scene that happened. But I was like, fuck.
I love when...
And I just watched this 2 days ago.
I love when the music and, like, the score that follows the movie, like, tells a story within... Is, like, telling the story as well.
It is.
Along with the movie, you know? As opposed to just, like, songs or stuff being, like, dropped into, like, transition or something, you know? Like, this was, like, really scored well.
This was incredibly well. And so we get that... That's how we get our title card. Because... And then it transitions to that whispering that... I don't know what language that is. It's like
Zapatita. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I have no clue, but that's what it sounds like. Anyways, and we get the flashing of the title card there, and it just says "Get Out" as we're panning past a nice forest passing by as we're in a car. And then it just seamlessly goes into Gambino.
Yeah,
and that's like, damn, okay.
Some Redbound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was nice.
Yeah, I mean, once again, tying into the music and all that. And it's current.
Woke.
And it's current as well.
Indeed, people ain't woke.
Yeah, no, not at all. No. A little too woke. A little.
They're very radical.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. But yeah, so I love it. You get to see some of Chris's photography. It's kind of setting the mood that he is a photographer. Yeah. We're seeing the dynamic of him getting ready while Rose is pastry shopping with her psychotic face.
Oh, God.
It was so fun watching this with Nancy and Maria because Maria had never seen it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And so at first she was like going along, but then I think she picked up on Nancy and I going like, every time she'd say something about the girl. And then I think she was like,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be her. When I first watched it,
I
think it was a twist for me.
It was a twist for me, too.
I don't think I was suspecting her.
Looking back at it now, I can see, and I have to applaud Allison Williams.
Yes, that's her.
Her acting throughout some of this is, like, so good because you can see, it looks like almost like she's doing a poor job of acting, but it's because, like, how that person would be.
Yeah.
So it's like she's faking it in some scenes, and you can tell,
like, she's
you're
trying
supposed
really
to tell.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because then in the end, it's kind of like it's giving you enough to.
She's playing a person who's acting.
Yeah.
She's acting out a person who's acting.
Faking to be something like,
yes.
Not someone else. She's still herself, but like, yes, a different personality or like, you know, not revealing her true intentions of what she's planning to do with Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She really did. She did a phenomenal job. And so did Chris. And honestly, fucking the guy who played her brother, Caleb Landry Jones.
Yeah.
That motherfucker has to be one of the best actors I think I've ever seen.
Really?
He was so fucking disturbing.
I could see that.
That dinner scene where you first meet him is like next level. It's like, this motherfucker would skin me alive. I could feel it.
That's true.
He was creepy.
It is pretty good acting whenever you like hate a character.
Yeah.
Because they make you like believe that person is real so much that you're just like, man, I hate this person.
He did. Like, I mean, I was like, this week I probably woke up and says the same shit every day. Like, he was good. I was like, damn, why has he not been in more? Maybe that's his best performance. Maybe that was peak Caleb. Being a racist. Wow. Yeah.
Was he playing a character? No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm just kidding. No, yeah. So we have. So we were not even. Yeah. So getting back to. They're getting ready, and they're planning to go on a trip to go visit her parents for the weekend. And it's the way that, I mean, essentially, without kind of beating around the bush, but then having to actually say it out loud, he's like, "Do they know that I'm black?" Yeah, and she's like, "No." But it's the way should they, right? Like, and then like you watch that at that like first time, you're like, okay, but now watching it back, it's like you can tell like the like almost in her tone too, like she's enjoying faking him out, you know?
Is.
Like literally.
No, she is fucking sick.
Yeah.
She is twisted.
Demented.
And it's like, it's so sad because like right as she gets there too, like he opens a door and gives her like the best kiss. And it's like, damn, you know, like this guy actually fucking loves her.
Yeah.
And then, and she's playing him like that well. And it just, makes me sick. I don't know. And he also makes a comment. He's like, well, I just don't want to be chased off the lawn with a shotgun. And, that's some foreshadowing.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, there's a lot of foreshadowing.
Because he's getting chased off.
And then even when she says, my dad would have voted for Obama a third time, and it's the way that...
So he's not racist.
And that comes up later again, almost like a rehearsed script later on, you know? Yeah, so also foreshadowing there.
And I'm sorry, just because you decided to vote for Obama doesn't make you not racist.
Yeah.
Like that's literally not how it works.
It's the conversation. It's like the same as along like, well, like my friends are black. Like what? Like that doesn't, okay.
That doesn't make
my neighbor. Like, okay, well.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay,
Anyways.
yeah. So they're getting ready. You can already tell he's like unnerved about like he's feeling like I don't know about this.
He's going to a whole ass house full of white people.
Literally, yeah.
I'd be nervous too.
Yeah.
And I'm white.
Most definitely. I mean, I know that feeling of being around a group of people that you feel like you're maybe not that welcomed by. Yeah. So yeah, it's
unsettling.
It is. You don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's not nice to not feel safe. You kind of feel like you always have to like look over your shoulder, just being anxious about like you're defensive. So there's no sense of like having any type of like real
enjoyment or relaxation.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not a vacation.
Yeah.
But then in comes Rod. Yay. He is our comedic relief, but also our badass. We love him.
Yes, we love Rod, played by Lil Rel Howery. But yes, definitely gives that.
He says the line, he was like, tell me why I can't pat down an old woman. He goes, I'm telling you, the next 9/11 is going to be on some geriatric shit.
Literally.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. And it's the way that the way that his comedy gets woven in, it's like it's just perfect. It's just what's needed to like kind of
because it's realistic. It seems like I could that does
it's
sound
like banter, like almost with a friend, you know?
And it's not like wait for the like
the
laugh
punchline or the drum roll. Yeah.
And basically Rod is already being like, why are you going to a house full of like white people? He's like, I know some shit is up. And he says like, what is she doing, licking your balls or something? And then I think he hangs up at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyways, then it cuts to them driving. And I will say I do like, especially at the beginning, there's some almost very just like harsh cuts that happen. And I love it because it makes me more unsettled.
Got you.
Like it just feels very like
abrupt.
Oh fuck, like we're here now.
Yeah.
And almost like when
like
when
an anxiety.
I disassociate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then you come to and you're like, oh shit.
That's what it felt like. And so it was like very like ugh for me. I loved it. And yeah, so they're having, you know, some banter in the car. She's talking, like, he tries to smoke. We find out she doesn't like smoking, blah, blah, blah. And then this fucking deer looks like it was thrown out in front of the fucking car. It was like, it hit like the windshield.
It did. And it's the way that I'm like, because when they go and look at it, I'm like, I feel like it should have like.
It should have been laying the opposite direction.
And it should have been like embedded into the fucking window, like the way it hit them, I guess. I don't know. I've never been hit by a deer, so I don't know how that works. Yeah. Knock on wood.
Chris, and then so he goes, they hit this deer. It's messed up their front, like the headlight and the side mirror.
Yeah.
And he goes, and we get this scene where he goes to investigate. And I put this 2 and 2 together for like this morning. This is one of the ones where I was like, oh, I'm so fucking dumb. So like, I was like, Chris staring at the deer scene it's so good because it gives creepy vibes. And then it's got that immediate cut to the police scene. But this is hinting at his trauma and how he needs to go back because his mom was a hit and run. And then the deer is a constant symbol throughout the house. And the
he's always having to
fathers, there's a mention later with the father that I'll bring up. But so not only was he satisfying his past almost a little bit by going back to check on this deer and make sure that, you know, they ended up calling the police instead of animal control, but not just leaving it
because that's
as so many people would.
Yeah.
And
because as we see in another instance later in the movie as well, when
Georgina
is faced with that. Yeah.
And so his mother essentially, as we find out, was killed in a hit and run, and he was 11. He's a fucking child, and he feels immense guilt because he didn't call.
Yeah.
Because again, he's fucking
he was like
11.
And
he's panicking.
Frozen in panic.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's totally valid, but God, the way that this family like
preys on that,
it's sick. But anyways, then we get flashed to the police scene where the police officer is there saying like, okay, in the future you need to call animal control. And then he says, go.
No, you go.
Okay, I was like, I didn't know. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, you fine.
But basically, this motherfucking cop's racist, and it's just like it's a nice narrative on not was this police officer brutal, but like police brutality and the unfair and just racially profiling people. Because Rose was the one driving. They hit a deer. It's not like they hit someone else. But then he asks to see Chris's ID.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't driving.
There was like nothing suspicious and there was nothing to be like interrogating them about or especially also in the tone that is like a delivery in the way that he's talking to them.
And whenever Rose goes like, no, he wasn't driving, and he's like, we have the right to check. And it's like, why the fuck do you need to? It's a fucking deer. Yeah. They hit a fucking deer and you're literally just doing this because he's black. Yeah, the deer hit them.
Literally.
God, go question get the deer's ID. God.
Get that tag. But yeah, no, and it's the way that she then has her little moment where she's like defending him, you know, and whatever. And then finally the cop like leaves them. But it's the way that like then he's all, you know, really happy that she protected him. And
he was like, that's hot.
Yeah. And literally by the end of it, you're like, oh man, buddy. Yeah. The way she literally just used him and played him.
She sure did.
But yeah, it was.
The cut from this after to them pulling up to the house was the one that made me be like, I put like, I honestly almost love the harsh I love the almost harsh cuts in between scenes. I said it feels like it adds to the overall an easy film. Yeah. Feeling of the film. But yeah, so then they pull up to the house and immediately we see that basically they have like all black help and the house strongly resembles a plantation house.
And literally how
it had like 4 rocking chairs on the porch and a goddamn Cracker Barrel.
Literally, as soon as he's pulling in and he sees like a black man working like raking, I think is what he was doing out there. Yeah, I'm like,
oh, I would have been like, and I'm
sus. Like what?
We're just gonna keep driving through this circular driveway and pull right the fuck back out.
And it's the way like she says, what? That's our groundskeeper, right, or something like that. Yeah. I'm like, one, they need a groundskeeper. Like what?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways.
Also, typically that's a team of people, like who do landscaping and stuff.
Anyways,
it's whatever. But So they get inside, they meet, and, you know, they're being all chummy and stuff like that. And this is where the dad comes in because they say, oh, we hit a deer. And she said, it fruck us out. Yeah. And then they were like going, frucking, blah, blah, blah. But the dad goes, honestly, good. I say good because he says, basically one down, a couple million to go. He says that these deers are taking over. And so as I see
it's another innuendo for
it's an analogy for, and this commentary on killing deers is what I imagine is his thoughts on black people. Yeah. Basically saying that they're expendable and good, like
another one down, like basically.
And that's what there's that big at the end, you know, we've got that giant deer.
And how he gets killed by the stag.
And how he gets killed by it. I thought was very smart.
I didn't even think about that, to be honest.
I didn't put that together until this morning either. And I was like, literally, I was having maybe I just need to watch more things at 5 a.m. I don't know.
Maybe. It's good. Your brain was flowing. It was activated. It was like,
let's go. After not sleeping a lot. Maybe I'm imagining all this.
No, I feel that. I didn't even think about that, but that makes a whole lot of sense how that ties back in together, him getting killed by that.
It's just on like
another layer because there's so many layers already there. So that's
because I had honestly I had never noticed that line before. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that I can like point that out and remember that, but I know what you mean.
I picked it up this morning and I was like, oh, I've never noticed that line, but okay. So then they're going on a tour of the house, basically, and the father has another line that says it's such a privilege to be able to experience someone else's culture. And I was like, oh, so you just mean how this entire you are literally cultural appropriating.
The whole time that gives us suspicious and like just creep vibes. Like the whole, at least for the family, when I was first watching this, now when you know everything, but it's like, it's the way that like, I didn't think she was a part of it, but I'm like, they're going to do something. Like there's something not right here because you can already tell from the get-go, like their questions, the way they word things, like it's very like pointed.
They're unswerving eye contact. It's just like burying into a soul, and quite literally. But yeah, so I mean that's such a huge thing too. Like black culture is so often watered down and appropriated by other people. Oh yeah. And I mean, literally so many trends that we have today can be
you can find the roots traced back to black culture.
Like literally the entire streetwear trend. Yeah. All of that. And then just
it's everything. It's music, it's dance, it
is like so woven into and
literature, like everything.
Everything, yeah. It just gets watered down and taken as something. And I mean, I know that I like am guilty of this too. Like I'm sure.
Yeah, it's the way that it's systemic. Yeah. You know, I feel like that gets brought up a lot, but it's just because that's the way it is. Like, I mean, and that in itself is what we're talking about is that's the way it is, you know, like there's no way to get around that is like we have been indoctrinated into just letting things be passable and permissible because of what has happened before. Exactly. And it can only get better, but there's still a long way to go.
Yes. For sure. Long, long way.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part that I didn't notice was he was going around and showing him pictures on the wall, he points out his father and how he was a track star.
Yeah. And that comes out in just a little bit. I remember that.
I didn't notice that at all. Because I guess I was just, I don't know what my brain was doing all the other times. I was just checked out, I guess.
He was fast.
And how the only person who beat him was a black guy.
Literally.
And so it's like, and he says he almost got over it. But he didn't.
Yep, and
because then he got himself up.
And it's those little things that keep popping up throughout the movie where you're just like, oh, okay, something's gonna go wrong. I already see it. Yep. Yeah, you're fearing for Chris already at this point. Like, please, like, get out, because I mean, the title of the movie, we already know like something's gonna happen. Like, what's gonna happen? Yeah. Like when we're like, just get out, please, just get out.
Please get out.
Get out. So they're showing him, he's showing him the house and all that.
He runs, they go into the kitchen and he says, my mother loved the kitchen, so I always keep a piece of her in here.
And literally Georgina is right there.
And we meet Georgina.
And it's the way that already he's like, okay, well, one, you had a black groundskeeper outside, but now we have
a black
maid? Like, and that's even, like, this is taking it to a whole nother level. You mean you have black people serving y'all? Like as if, like, you know what I mean?
Like this is the fucking...
whatever year
whenever
that
Civil
was
War
happening,
happened
literally,
and slavery did. So it's pretty It's
very plantation, as you said earlier.
Yeah. And Chris doesn't bring it up. The dad does. He's like, he says something about how I know what it looks like, blah, blah. And Chris was like, I wasn't going to take it there, but you're right.
Yeah.
It does look like that.
It really does, because it is.
And that's where we get the dad delivering the Obama line again.
Yeah. In essence. Yeah. Oh man. That's just like, cringe.
It is. It's so, ugh. But then it cuts to the little patio scene where they're sitting there drinking tea, and already they're sitting there prying into his fucking personal life. And of course he's like starts knocking the table because he's uncomfortable. So get out.
Literally, he's having withdrawals because he wants to like have a smoke to just like deal with the stress of like being in an uncomfortable station, and he knows he can't. In a new
place, surrounded by people that he doesn't feel safe
and
around.
Also just meeting
someone's parents.
That's nervous enough on its own. Like, throwing everything else and all the other factors into in there. Yeah. So he's definitely not comfortable. They're asking really like prying questions.
Super prying. And then being like, because she says something about like, why didn't you do anything? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, a bitch. Like,
could we just have left it? I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. More tea. Here we go. More whatever.
And even then, we get the little spoon click
where she's clicking on the on the teacup.
They're already like they're prying into his personal life, and then she's already like setting those like tones to hypnotize him and make him more susceptible.
Yes.
And then that's when they bring up
the cigarettes.
Yeah. That she can help him quit
with the little hypnosis, and he's just like, definitely not going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, no.
That sounds
I'll pass.
weird as fuck.
I'll pass. Which I mean, I don't know. Would you ever get hypnotized?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I would try it just to like see if it's even possible. I don't know. But then do you even recollect of yourself being hypnotized? I don't think so, right?
I don't know. What if I'm hypnotized right now?
Your whole life you've been hypnotized. This is not even like the Caitlyn that people know. Oh my God, you have an evil twin that like the real Caitlyn is like in a basement somewhere.
People tell me that they see me like everywhere, and I'm like, I was not there. I guess I just have one of those faces.
It's a doppelganger.
I don't know. I do have
a beautiful face.
A doppelganger. Oh, thanks.
But yeah, she's saying that she could help him get over that with some hypnosis. He's not down for it. And then is that when
with her Georgina pouring the tea.
Yes. Yeah. And she's having like a moment where you can, and I think
she's slipping.
She's slipping, because Georgina, would that be even Georgina's name, or is that grandma's name? Like,
I think that's
grandma's name, right? Yeah. So then the actual person who's in there, you can tell is like trying to like gain control back of their body, physically.
And she seems to be a rather strong individual because multiple times do we see Georgina slipping in between.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I wonder if like the grandmother was closer to death and had some sort of memory issues and stuff, and so her mind was like
not strong enough,
not as strong. Yeah. And then you've got this strong young young strong-willed individual
woman, person
inside of you too. I imagine that there could
that
be
in
some
itself
sort of
is just even the concept when we get to that part is just like, what? Like
it's wild.
That's wild. It's so smart too. It's like, and it's so like it's almost like body snatchers, but like not aliens. It's like literally people taking other people's bodies.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It kind of reminds me, I think, of like if like a demon possession was to have like in
the white demon.
Yeah, or like Sabrina,
the white devil.
What's that one called?
Oh, what do you mean?
With Sabrina,
the teenage witch.
Yeah, but the new one.
The new one. Oh,
Chilling Adventures.
The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
When Nick gets possessed by
the devil. Yeah. Satan.
There's like I think some slipping that was happening in between there.
That's
kind of those vibes. But
I haven't seen that in such a long time.
I think came first, so
it probably did. Yeah.
But anyways, so actually, I think before that, Rose, you could tell they had brought up the party, and at this scene too, you can tell that Rose is lying about being like, "What? It's this weekend?
Oh yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, and you're like, how do you?
It's on the same day.
It's on every year. Yeah. How do you forget? Like that's not something you forget. I remember.
Like, oh, and then that's when I think Georgina starts slipping because I feel like she's trying to like tell him, get the fuck out of here before
an auction
happens.
For your life.
Yeah, quite literally.
Literally, yeah.
And then that's when they tell Georgina to go lay down.
Yeah.
And then we get
the mom.
Yeah. But then Jeremy walks up, and so now we're basically at the dinner table, and this is where I put Jeremy's such a good actor. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, he's terrifying. Yeah. The way that he's just delivering all the lines and like, oh, the fucking toenail story collection.
Oh God,
that was gross.
Cringe.
She said she used to bite her toenails off, suck on them, and then keep them.
I believe it. That was not a lie.
Yeah, I can totally believe that, and it's fucking nasty. Oh, it's such a small snippet, but I'm like, that is gross.
Yeah,
it's gross.
Sorry to our listeners if you do that, but like,
I
hopefully none of you do that.
I fucking don't, because it's weird.
Yes, your toes really. Oh, okay. Anyways, all right. Yeah, that is gross though. Oh my God,
all the dirt that could
that's what I'm thinking about is like,
and then sucking all that. Okay,
well,
let's stop talking about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, just everything that he's saying about like the way that he's talking to him and everything, and he asked him if he's like into MMA and stuff, and he's telling him about his frame and genetic makeup.
He's making really disconcerting like comments about like racist remarks, you know, like in essence, you know. Yeah.
And then like you can tell he's already analyzing his body and what he would be good at and stuff, and so that's just like and then he goes to try to like he asked him if he's ever done anything, and he said, I did jujitsu. And I was an orange belt in jujitsu.
You were?
Yeah, and then I quit.
Oh, well, hey, you got I don't know the levels.
It goes white, yellow, orange.
Oh, hey, you got 3?
Well, everyone gets white.
Okay, so
start.
You 2.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I mean, that's more than I ever got. I've always wanted to take like a martial arts class or something, but yeah.
It was fun. I liked it. But
I'll just pee on myself and scream if anybody ever tries to attack me in defense.
I was like, why? But I see.
Nobody wants to touch you after you peed on yourself. And if you're screaming, you're attracting attention.
That's true. And then stab him in the eyeballs.
Literally. With my finger.
Yes. And but then Jeremy gets up and he's trying to fucking
like roughhousing, like some like loser, like 8th grader, like stop. Like
you're an adult. You're going to med school? Like, nah.
Yeah, his character, I hate him. So cringe. I feel like I'm gonna keep saying that throughout the whole movie.
That you hate him.
Yeah, well, and then the cringe, just so much cringiness, especially whenever the party
gaggle of white people.
Yeah, and everybody coming up to Chris and whatever, saying everything that they say. So after this, remind me. After that, they're just going to.
Yeah, so they're going to bed and basically she's being like, I can't believe, like, how are they different than that police officer? And stuff like that. But then they just like, you know, he's so sweet to her, and he's like saying like, don't apologize, and because that's not her fault, but it's like it literally is her fault. She's a part of it. She's just as bad as him, arguably worse.
He doesn't even know, and at this point he doesn't even know that she's a part of it. Even if she wasn't a part of it, like what kind of like, it's like you're taking someone into like a lion's den, you know, knowing, you know, how your family is, you know what I mean? And like to like then be all like, oops, my bad, whoopsie daisy. Yeah, bitch, like you didn't know that. Yeah. Okay.
But so then it basically like he's in bed and he's not sleeping, and he keeps recalling the deer, and this was when I was like, oh, the deer was also a callback to his mom. Yeah. And so like there's so many subtle things that it calls back to, but that's why he's losing sleep over it. So then he gets up to go smoke, and he's going throughout the house, and this is the part where it made me jump, is when he's walking down and Georgina walks past that door frame, and then it's got that quick bing. Little, I was like, fuck. This morning
sound effects,
I jumped, but it was good. And then we get outside and he's like about to light up his cigarette,
and then the groundskeeper, what's the grandpa just grandpa did
his name is Walter,
that's right. Walter just literally just charging like straight at him, and that's the way that's like, it gives us a moment to be like, wait, is he about to like hit him, tackle him? And then like just goes right past him, obviously swerves
last second, and he's like making direct eye contact with him the whole time, and just like it's not like even a normal, he's got like full sprint, so like his hands are in those little knives, and they're like chopping tap, like homeboy was running,
and it's the way we never really get,
he was the last leg of that. What is it called when you pass off a baton?
Oh, a baton race?
Yeah.
I think that's a relay. Oh, my bad. I don't know. I don't know sports.
I don't know either.
But yeah, that happens, and it's the way like we don't really necessarily get like an explanation. We already know that Grandpa was a track star, kind of thing.
And then he just says, "Sorry for my exercise last night."
Yeah, but it's like he was obviously intentionally trying to scare him, right?
Yeah.
And then like faked him out. Like I don't know, but yeah. It's also just one more clue to be like, there's something suspicious going on
like,
here.
cause who the fuck runs in like normal clothes?
Yeah, and at night and like
at night in the dark through the woods,
charging at someone.
Yeah, that's all weird.
Yeah,
and then so not only did we just get that frame jump from Georgina, then that jump, then he turns around.
Yes,
and Georgina's in the window.
In the window, and just like
admiring her face.
Like as if she's like in a mirror. Mm-hmm. I guess she sees a reflection, right?
Because it's dark outside.
Yeah, so she was looking at the reflection. Okay, got it.
But to him, it just looks like she's like kind of just looking out, but she's not making eye contact with him. And then when it pans inside, you can see that she is looking at her own reflection. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was fucking creepy. And then he gets inside.
And then there's Mom waiting in the darkness.
Yeah, like, why? Why are you fucking waiting in the dark? Like, that's weird as hell. Yeah. Then to turn on, like, I was like, this creepy ass bitch. Ugh, I don't know. But then he sits down. She's like, sit down with me. Like, this is, you know, like, do you smoke in front of my kid? And it's like, first off, your daughter's an adult.
And also, like, I mean,
26 years old is how old he is. So,
yeah.
Like,
this should be around the same age, but also too, it's like
I'm sure she's seen smoking before.
And like, yeah, get the fuck off my jock. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you okay?
You're not my parent.
And also too, I mean, like, she's an adult, like you said. What's that got to do with them? Like, I don't know.
Because she's like, that's my kid. That's
like
my
secondhand smoke. There's a lot of other things I'm sure that's killing her right now.
Yeah, for real. It was just fucking weird. But the whole time she's like telling him, yeah, we just, you know, we use some focal points to guide someone into a heightened state of suggestibility, which she has been doing this whole time. Because at this point, she's been stirring her tea. The moment he sits down, she grabs that saucer and teacup, and she's just scraping that, like the fucking rim. Spoon. Yeah. And the grating, like, sound that the spoon on the cup is making is uncomfortable, but it's also soothing.
At the same time.
It was making me being like, because it was just so repetitive.
Because it's consistent.
Yeah. And so I was just hearing it and I was like, oh, and then especially once the rain started coming in, I was like, oh, I am getting kind of sleepy.
You did get hypnotized.
Oh, yeah. I'm hypnotized right now. But then she starts bringing up some like super fucking triggering like remarks that are just triggering his trauma. And I imagine that is to make him more susceptible because
it's like breaking the mind almost to make it like malleable, to make it weak.
Yeah. You're making him think about these things. He's becoming highly
and also and like
vulnerable.
And then when he's thinking, he's going deep into his psyche. So she's also like following him along for the ride, getting in there. I feel like, you know, like a virus
until she can push him off the cliff is basically what it is. And so
and she's making him think about like all of his repressed trauma of like his mom with the hit and run and like what exactly happened. Yeah, why didn't you call anyone? I was like, well, just calm the fuck down. Yeah.
And then he says, I can't move. And she goes, you can't move? And she goes, well, you're paralyzed, just like that day you did nothing. And it's like, damn, bitch. That's savage.
She's being a hoe bag.
Yeah, what the hell? And then
very
she goes,
insensitive of Missy.
Yeah, for a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
To then just be like, you're paralyzed, like the day you did nothing.
Because we know what her end game is here now.
And then she says, now sink into the floor. And he goes, wait. And she goes, sink. Pop. And I love
falls the way that it goes into him falling into the black, and then like
the way that the screen word sink sounded too. Yeah. Even with the motion, like the timing of everything happened. Like it was just all beautiful the way he fell back.
Yes.
And the soundtrack, the score that came in there, like came in at the exact right time with the word that. So sink just had more resonance.
Yeah.
And it was just really beautiful. And then, of course, that scene with him floating is just gorgeous.
And then, like, showing you, like, more so, like, kind of how, like, he's now in the sunken place. And, like, you can see, it's like he's watching his life as if it's a TV show.
Yeah,
almost,
he's watching
because he's no longer in control.
Like he's in a little pit and he's watching his eyes. Yep, in this tiny little far off rectangle, and that's what his eyes are seeing. But he is merely a passenger at this point. And then he wakes up in bed, startling awake, sees that his phone is unplugged, which is like this keeps is we find is a recurring thing
to make sure his phone's dead,
to make sure he can't reach the outside world. But then he gets going around and he's like, okay, yeah, that was kind of weird. And
he's just like, maybe it was a dream, I guess, or maybe not. Like,
yeah. And he's going and he's taking some photos outside. And this is where we get the
encounter with Walter, right? And he's like, sorry about my exercise last night.
And he says something like, you know, I never got to properly introduce you. And then Walter says, she's nice, right? And he's like, Rose? And he says, one of a kind. Top of the line, a real doggone keeper. And the way that his eyes deliver that
crazy eyes
is insane.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And it's also like, why are we speaking in 1920?
Exactly. Like, exactly. It was clearly like this person is out of time, out of place. It's what they're saying. And we get that with Georgina and also Logan, who is also Dre, that their speech is very off. Their mannerisms, everything is wrong for that age of a human being. Yeah. And especially, it just doesn't fit. Yeah. It doesn't at all.
So they sound like old white men.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I mean, like, you know, it doesn't sound right. Yeah, and that's whenever he wants to smoke, but then like he realizes like the hypnosis must have worked because he doesn't want to smoke anymore.
He says it makes him want to throw up. Yeah. Walter also says at the end of it, he goes, I should get back to my work and mind my own business. And he goes, and mind my own business. And it's like, ooh.
Like,
homeboy's just telling him like, you better move the fuck along, sir.
Yeah.
But he's saying like about himself, and it was just like, oh, that's so fucking creepy.
Cringe. Yeah, creepy. All of the above. Yeah.
Oh,
and then was that before whenever Georgina was the phone, was that whenever Georgina was like unplugging
that was the first time that he says she unplugged it, but I bet you it was
she kept going
Rose
too. That's true,
probably doing it in his sleep. But yeah, so then he gets back upstairs. They're getting ready for the party. And he mentions like, I had this weird dream, like I was in this like place, it was like dark and stuff. And at this scene is where I also really noticed it. Her face almost looks giddy as she says, oh God, that sounds awful. And she's like saying these words, but her face doesn't match with what she actually is matching. Yes, which she does a great job of at the end too.
Oh yeah,
it's fucking
whenever
creepy.
Things are turning, twisting.
And so I thought that was like a really good part on her end, where it's like she's showing that she's really happy, like that, okay, everything's working. It's working. The sunken place is working, and she can confirm it. And then, now we get a whole shitload of white people that show up.
Popping in.
And they being racist as fuck.
Literally, yeah. So they're all together, and then we go through, not a montage, but like just different...
We're meeting different couples.
We're meeting different couples, and it's different versions of just them either commenting on his physicality or on...
one lady asked, is it better?
Yeah.
Is it true what they say? Is it better? And they were just like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also just like the comments that they're making as well. Like,
black is in fashion.
Black is in fashion, literally.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's like, okay, someone's culture is not a fashion trend.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't
most
just...
definitely.
Don it because you woke up and when it suits you, you're wanting to take parts of their culture that fit you in that moment, but not actually support the culture or the people that are a part of it.
Yeah.
You want to disenfranchise them.
Exactly.
And use what you can that you like. It's just like people in the Bible, too. They pick out the shit that works for them, and then they ignore the rest.
You hear that, Christians? Your damn Bible.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, no. But literally, though. But no, yeah, and you're very right in all of what you just said. And also, too, it's the way that even, like, the way they're, like, black is in fashion, how you're saying, like, it's almost like it's like they're so not racist that they've convinced themselves that they're not racist, but they are so racist that they're like able to like rationalize and like they're willing to do this to black people because they love black people culture so much, but they don't actually love it enough or black people enough to
view them as actual humans
to not do this to you.
That they're murdering.
Yeah.
And stealing.
And,
because I imagine.
And imagine not even necessarily murder, because they're basically entrapping them in their own body. It's like a torture.
Yes, it is. And that's why Walter at the end. But
yes.
when we get to the film of the grandpa explaining it, he says, this is something our order has been working on for a long time and only recently perfected, which means that they have been experimenting on these people for years, for probably centuries.
And killing black people.
Just killing
them. For the
them
sake of this surgery.
So they could live longer and have
or
all
just
the benefits of being young and
of what they think to be in like, yes.
And so it's just, they've been doing this. This is something, and it's essentially, this is also just like the slave trade. They're literally auctioning these people off. And so it's just,
as we see here in a little bit, because at the party, he's mingling with all these people. Everybody's being super racist, super weird, super
asking
whatever.
The most obscure questions.
Yeah. Kind of prying.
That suit their needs, not his. They're not actually trying to ask things about Chris. They're trying to find out, will he work for me?
And then, exactly, right? Because as we see here, eventually, before we get to that part, well, he does meet that blind guy, right? That's like kind of having his own commentary. That's even weird. And then asking him about how he's a photographer, and right? He asks him.
Yeah, we meet Dre before it.
That's right.
But yeah, so he's like looking through the camera lens, and I like those camera lens scenes. But then he focuses on Dre, which, of course, Dre is acting hella weird.
Yeah, but it's the way he was like, so like happy. He was like, oh, finally, is another black person? Okay, cool.
That's maybe not as weird as these other fuckers.
Yeah, but then no, he meets Dre.
He's like, oh, nope, he's just as fucking weird.
Just as weird, because it's not really Dre. Which Dre is played by, I love, Lakeith Stanfield. Yeah. He's a good actor.
He did a great job.
He's been a lot of other things, but like he's good.
A lot.
The things that I've seen him in.
And whenever Dre's wife, I guess, Logan's wife, comes to pull him away, Chris goes for a fist bump and Dre grabs his whole hand for a handshake, which is just showing yet again that
some cultural difference of like
/ time difference.
It's like that's not how
like any young person, if the fist was held up to them, they would know to fist bump.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to go for a handshake. You would never just grab my hand. Like, unless you're trying to make like a funny turkey or something, you know?
That feels really nice, though.
Oh, you can grab my hand.
Okay, let's stop. Too close. Okay, not that kind of podcast, you guys. But yeah, so yeah, he's having this whole conversation with Dre, but then Dre's wife or whatever that situation is, the person inside Dre's wife, comes up and
pulls him away because other people want to look at him.
Yeah, and I love the way that Dre even said, like in that weird voice too. He was like, Chris was just telling me that he was so comfortable by my presence.
He was
here.
much more, with my being here.
Yeah, like it's so weird for even someone to even comment on that. Like what? Okay, but anyways, yeah, and that's the way she pulls him away because other people want to talk to him or see him.
And he literally is like turning around. I was like, they're showing him off like he's some sort of goddamn show pony.
Yeah,
like it's just weird. And so then finally Chris is
picking up on all of that.
Yeah, Chris is like, this is weird as fuck. I need to step away. Oops, sorry. And then yes, we meet Jim Hudson, the blind art dealer.
Yes. And they get to talking. It's the way that already you're getting the sus vibes from Jim because he's being just
he's being severe on
that's
the
true.
People he is surrounded with, rightly so, but he is very much
he's a hypocrite
part of it.
Yeah.
So it's it's like, oh, and he's just saying things like, one day you're developing prints in the dark room and the next you wake up in the dark. And then I was like, that could also hint at what's to come for Chris.
Yeah,
he's like basically telling him like, but you gonna wake him in the dark.
There's a lot of innuendos here. Yeah. And then they have their whole little conversation, and then that's whenever after that he's trying to take a picture of Andre, right?
Well, he goes back upstairs. He goes back upstairs first, And he's like, okay, this is all fucking weird. I think he was going to call Rod.
That's when he calls. Yeah, he wanted to call Rod.
And this is when, and it's weird. The moment he gets upstairs, the entire party downstairs that was inside the house goes quiet. And they just listen for what he's doing upstairs. And it's just like, that's so creepy. Also, you can tell when people stop conversing.
Because it's like, it goes from sounding like a cafe to like crickets.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, y'all aren't being discreet. But yeah, his phone is unplugged yet again. And he notices Georgina in the next room. And he tells Rose, he's like, come here. Like, I think she's been unplugging my phone. And she's like, oh, what? So you're just so sexy that people are unplugging your phone? And I was like, bitch, yes, he is.
He is. But also, what does that have to do with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what? Like what kind of...
Because he had made the comment of, I don't think she likes that I'm with you.
Oh, that's right.
And...
But still, like what would that do anything to like, because unplugging someone's phone? Like,
yeah. And also I took it as she didn't like that she was dating a black man.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And then Rose turns it around on him, which is just like...
the Rose thing to do.
Yes. And so, I don't know. I was just like, ugh.
It's aquatic.
But he, like... plugs his phone back on and then he calls Rod and he's like, I feel like we're just on display. And he says how he was hypnotized. And Rod was like, they're gonna make you a sex slave.
Literally. I love how throughout the whole movie he's just like, he's a sex slave.
Yep. That's his whole go-to. He's like so close, but then at the last minute he's like got it like on the head. He's got nail on the head, fucking exactly correct. And then he's like, sex slave, which I mean,
ultimately, wouldn't that be a sex slave? They're having sex.
Yeah, Logan, well, because they made the comment, Logan and that lady girl.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
She was like, lately we haven't been able to leave the house. And they were like, making suggestive eyes at each other. So, AKA, they've just been fucking all day.
That's so weird. That's so weird.
It's
like weird on a lot of levels.
Gap. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and then just like there's a person inside of that. Like, does that person feel that? Do they
feel pleasure? Or is
like,
is that
even
rape?
Yeah, like that's just weird. Like, I don't. And then that is rape because that's someone else's body. That's not even. You don't even have consent. Yeah. Obviously, there's a whole lot of layers right there.
Damn. Yeah, that's fucking fucked up.
Makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Damn. And it's fucked up. Yeah.
But anyways, Rod is right all along, and Chris makes the comment. He says it's like all the black people here have missed the movement.
Yeah.
And he says, and then Rod says, they're probably hypnotized or some shit. And you can see the flicker of fear across Chris's face where he's just like.
Where that starts becoming like that could be a reality.
Yeah, this could be true. And it is.
Yeah. But yeah, and so that's why he's telling Rod all that. And then that's whenever he tries to go and he's like, get that picture of Andre. Am I still jumping?
Georgina comes in though, as he's talking. No, but it's just. I think this interaction with Georgina is important because we mentioned it. He makes a comment. He says, if there's too many white people, I get nervous. And then Georgina at this point.
This is the big point.
Is like looking him in the eye and her face just starts
when she wants to literally
crying.
Break out. Yeah.
And then she's like silent for a second and just tears. And then she goes, no. Oh, no. And like laughs and stuff. And it's just like.
Yeah, it looks like a cyborg like breaking down.
Yes, it was like you could tell there was like her body was giving a emotional response that did not match
with what the grandma was wanting to do. Like they were both fighting each other for like control of that body in that moment.
Both souls were on display.
Yeah.
And then as Georgina leaves, she goes, "They treat us like family." It's like, bitch, because you are their fucking family.
Literally.
You with your weird ass brain implanted in someone else.
That is so crazy. But yeah. And so I'm not even going to say what's happening. But yes,
no. So he goes downstairs.
I was like, the way I kept wanting to jump to that part.
They're like having more conversation. There's one Asian individual here. And his name was Hiroki, and he asks if being African American has more advantages or disadvantages in the modern world, because I imagine he also incurred a lot of racism towards himself as well. And it's like,
yeah, he's trying to like
see, like, am I going to have to put up with this shit some more? Like, or have you found that is your experience now in this modern world to not be as like,
I didn't even, I guess so. I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah. He's like, maybe your
experience will be better for me.
Yeah.
And that's, we can't comment on that.
No, we can't.
Because that's not,
Don't have that experience.
Yep. And so then this is where he goes, well, how about Dre, Logan? Or he says Logan. He goes, would you like to take this one? And is saying, like, will you answer this question?
Yeah.
And Logan goes on to say, like, he's going on, he's telling, and then Chris is trying to record.
Yeah, he's trying to record.
Take a photo.
Take a photo. Both.
Yeah.
Anything that he can get at the moment, but it's the way that the flash goes off, and that's what sets off.
It's like a reset.
Logan / Andre ish. You know what we're talking about. And he starts having like, he just starts like freaking out. You can tell like something happens in his eyes. They dilate, and then he starts getting the nosebleed, and he's like, yelling, get out to Chris.
Get the fuck out. Get out. Get out. And he's like losing his mind. And you can see there was a change of emotion in his eyes. He was his eyes before looked dead.
Deer caught in headlights.
And then now they look terrified. There was pure terror. He did such a seamless, beautiful job of switching entire beings in that moment. And it's so creepy.
Yeah.
And then it flashes to everyone inside, Chris, Rose kind of comforting him on the couch and stuff. And then Logan comes back in, and they're like, oh, we're just glad you're yourself again. And I was like, he's not himself.
After he had a moment with Misty.
Missy,
the mom, right?
Yeah. I actually don't know her name.
Missy. I think that's what her name is.
Yes, it is.
Armitage. And because she put him back in that hypnotic state, and then they try to pass it off as if he was just having an epileptic seizure moment. And I'm like, that's not what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And so
at all,
they're tying that up, and they're saying, well, why don't we do something that's more enjoyable? And so they go to split off. Chris and Rose decide to go on a walk, and the family is going to go do something else,
which we learn is a auction.
That's right.
For Chris, as they're raising up, they're trying to pass it off as bingo and raising their bingo cards.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.
Okay, but yeah, so there's a fucking auction.
There's a freaking auction for Chris.
And Rose, so it seemed like Rose was trying to comfort Chris by getting him to go on this walk.
But no, this is a distraction.
Getting him away from the fact that, yes, they were literally auctioning him off. And this auction scene, beautiful. It's really well done. I like the lack of dialogue that's happening on their end.
Yeah, because at that point you're still trying to figure out, like, wait, what's happening? Wait, for real?
Yeah, because you don't really know until Chris's photo comes into frame.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that is a beautiful photo of him. He looks so damn good in it. I was like,
beautiful. He's a beautiful person.
He is. But yeah, and so the lack of dialogue that's happening on their end, and then the somewhat overlapping dialogue that's happening, because we keep flashing between Chris and Rose and the auction.
He's trying to convince her that he wants to go. He does not want to be there anymore.
Yeah, because he's like, my cousin was epileptic. I've seen this shit.
That's not
that was not an epileptic seizure. And she was like, well, my dad's a doctor, so I'm inclined to believe him. And it's like, okay, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but
also no.
No.
Like, we know that, and I've seen it too. I've seen people who have epileptic seizures, and like, that's not it.
I feel lying vibes from your whole family, so I'm not inclined to believe anything that they say.
Especially while they're having a freaking auction across the way.
Exactly. He knows his spidey senses are tingling. Like Rod's TSA senses.
Literally. Because then I guess while they're doing all that, then it cuts to, Rod is then he gets the picture of Logan, aka Andre, right? Or Andre, aka Logan.
Whenever they get back up to the room.
Yeah, and before that, we figure out that Jim wins the
Jim wins the auction, and basically Chris is like, okay, fine, like, we can stay here. And he's like, I love you. And she's like, I love you too. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, it's so fucking sad because he does love her and he trusts her and he's deciding to stay in this situation for her.
That he's obviously uncomfortable with.
Because in the way that she reacted to him wanting to leave was so rude. And then she
manipulates.
makes it better by saying, let's go home, making him think he can get out. And that's she makes him feel better by that.
Yeah.
But then that move in and of itself is like giving him that last little shred of hope, dangling it in front of him, and then she's just ripping it the fuck out from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's literally like a fucking slave trade auction, and it's just this like perpetual cycle that can't be escaped. And it said maybe not necessarily with their bodies, but their culture being watered down and all that stuff, and everything is just being sold off to fit white people's needs.
Wow. So, okay, that's a good commentary right there.
It's
a hot take.
But
it's mind-boggling.
Oh, and then this is where Chris tells Rose that his mom had survived the initial hit, and so this is where we figure out that if he wouldn't have
frozen up and would have acted,
possibly he could have saved her. But there's
we still don't know.
Way to know
there's
that. Like, yes, she survived the initial hit,
but she still could have died even if if life-saving procedures were done too. She still could have died. But yeah, exactly. So he's definitely carrying. And has been carrying a lot of guilt his whole life for that.
And then that's when he says, I won't abandon you. Because she's like, you're going to leave me here? And he's like, I won't abandon you, Rose. And then that's when he says he loves her. And it's like, oh, my God. Like, it's just, he's so fucking nice.
Yeah.
I hate it. But, yeah, so they go back. Everyone's leaving. Jeremy's being creepy as fuck with the ukulele on the sets. Both sets of parents. So we've got Georgina and Walter standing there. Just standing together like a couple.
Yeah.
And then Missy and Dad.
Forget Dad's name.
Yeah, me too. Dean. And so they're up there and they're just like watching him, like smiling approvingly because they know like that they're about to get to do
what they've been planning to do this whole time.
Exactly. Shit's about to go down. But yeah, so he gets back upstairs. He sends the pic of Dre.
That's right.
To Rod, and Rod immediately calls him. Yeah. Wastes zero time.
He's like, I already know who that is.
And he's like, nah, boy. And he goes, sex slave. Whenever he says that she's like 30 years older than him and stuff. And I was like, yeah.
So Andre had been missing from Brooklyn for some while. Rod already recognizes him, and he's telling him that, and that's whenever
Chris's phone dies. And I forget what he's looking for, but then he gets to the closet, right? Yeah, the closet door is just open. And he had noticed it open earlier in the movie. So I guess he was like, well, fuck, let me go investigate because my phone's fucking dead and what the hell, we're getting out of here anyways. Yeah, and so that's whenever he's looking and he finds that little box that has all the pictures of Rose with a whole bunch of other black people. Yep. And he's sifting through them, and through the end, that's when he sees Walter and Georgina, and he's getting the idea of like, oh God, like she's in on this. Yeah. Like, and it was clear that they had an intimate relationship in these photos. From the way that they're taken, they're very close together. It looks like they're in a relationship. A groundskeeper. And like, and they were dressed differently. Yes. But wildly differently. Yes. More appropriate for their age and not like they're stuck in the 50s or some shit. Which like, no, very hate to you if you dress like the 50s, but yeah, no. It's just, that's not your commonplace. Yeah. Especially with the mannerisms, it's all wrong. Yeah. And so he finds these pictures, he's looking at them, and then it's the way that Rose comes back upstairs, and then she's like, oh. And he's like, oh. Yeah, he closes the door and she's there, and it's like. Yeah. And then it's at that point, I'm sure she knew what he was looking into, right? She did. She very much so. And it's at this point, I'm sure she feels like there's so much in control that they can do whatever they want at this point that she's probably fucking with him, and she left that open for him to find. Yeah. Oh, I would. Yeah. And I would not put it past her. But yet she's still playing along. Yes. It does help for, like, as we find out later, it helps if they have a mutual understanding of the process, both brains going into it. Yeah. So I think they do need him to know. That's true. But yes, like, because he's like, well, I was just looking for my camera. And she's like, literally right here. You mean the one that's right here? Yeah. And he's like, bloop. Oh. And so he's telling her to get the keys, and she's like taking forever. So he's like, we can just do this on the way out, right? Yep. And so she's like, oh yeah, sure. So she's looking for the keys, and it's him like trying to get out and go by the door, but it's the way that Jeremy's just standing there with the blocking it. Stick. Yeah. And then the mom asks him like, oh, going somewhere? And she's got the teacup in hand. The whole family is like literally surrounding him. Yeah. They're like circling their prey. And it's just, like it feels like they're hunting him, just like he is the deer.
Very much that. And it's whenever and then the dad says some shit that I don't remember what he says. What did he say?
So yeah, he's at this point that like dad comes in. You can see on Chris's face that he's starting to realize this family's gonna kill him, and you can tell he's starting to realize Rose is in on it too. But the dad says something like, "We are the gods trapped in cocoons," and some dumbass line, which we get later in the Coagula video.
Oh, yeah.
That there's like a hatching and
Coagula.
Yeah, Coagula.
Behold the
felt very
Coagula.
like Ratma, like VHS
Yeah,
to me.
it did,
I
didn't
loved
it?
it.
Yeah.
I love
That whole
little
video.
They did a great job.
And yeah, it's the way that he's the whole time that the dean is having this little monologue with him.
Rose is like,
he's trying to get Rose is quote unquote trying to get the keys
when he looks at her.
While he's like, Rose, please, the keys. And then it's like it's the heartbreaking like the tone in his voice when he's like, please, the keys.
And
like,
then he's
please.
like, Rose, the goddamn keys.
Yeah.
And he's like switching in between, like you can tell he's like sorry, I didn't mean to yell, but then he's like freaking the fuck out.
Yeah, obviously. And it's the way he's like, finally, like, where are the keys, Rose? And she's like, these keys.
I can't give them to you, right, babe?
Give them to you.
And then she waves it up.
Yeah.
The way her face drops immediately is just like,
yeah. And then the way his face is just like, okay, I like literally have been played. Like,
yeah.
Just like,
Jeremy comes and mom hits that teacup immediately and sends him back to the fucking sunken place. Yeah. Really, yeah. I mean, could be head trauma there, so that wasn't smart.
Yeah, and then it's the way they're like, oh, did he hurt himself? And then Jeremy's like, did you see the way he fucking fell? And I'm just like,
yes, we saw.
Yeah, literally. That's why we're asking the question.
Yep. And then, so we get Chris in the sunken place, and you see them like carrying him off, and then Rose leans in and says, "You are one of my favorites."
Oh yeah, and then he's like, "Do you hear that? You were one of her favorites."
It's like, fuck you, like fuck you.
Very big fuck you.
But this is where we now flash back to Rod though, because he was like, my TSA senses they're tingling, and he's sitting there. And I liked, this was something I also noticed this morning, that while he's sitting there with Sid, the dog, to go look up and look into Andre's disappearance, there is an ad about aging and losing your wits as you age that's playing on the TV.
Oh, wow.
Which was like,
yeah,
that's literally the whole premise of this.
What they were wanting to try to like get away from the white people.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, he's doing his detective work, and then
seeing Gray's been missing for 6 months. And
then actually takes that to the cops.
Yeah, we were flashing in between now. Rod's solving this fucking case.
Yeah, basically.
And then in between, we see Chris. It flashes back to Chris, and he's in this
basement-ish kind of thing.
Fuck.
Yeah, strapped to some chairs
in front of a TV set and a deer bust. And it ties, and this is where I was like, this ties the father rambling about deers back in.
Yeah.
And I was like, poor Chris. He is literally just this deer that the father views as an expendable pawn. But then this is where we get the Coagula video before he goes.
Yeah, what you brought up. Yeah, that's right.
And this video is fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's totally sets like it
the
does what it needed to do. The music that's in the background, the way it gives like whenever your teacher in like second grade would roll in like that big metal cart with the TV on it and put it in a VHS tape. Yes, literally, it gave that vibe.
Yeah. And it reminded me of like the Veggie Smasher video in VHS 94, and then like just the whole vibes at like 80s. It's very 80s 90s kind of transition.
One you can tell because the kids were little.
Yes, the kids were little. So this is something they've been planning for obviously years since then. Yeah. And at that point they were saying it's been recently. Like, so at this point, there's no telling how many people other people they've done this to.
Like, for their friends, for all those white people, for the auctions, how many auctions there have been.
They've had it every year.
Literally, that the kids have been alive. So that's crazy.
It's just fucking, oh, God. It's sick.
But yeah, and Rose's grandfather is basically explaining all that, the procedure, how it's easier and it works better whenever the person who is about to happen to knows and understands what's about to happen to them.
And they go,
the coagula, behold the coagula.
Which is funny.
Then
it, I'm not sure what the name is or
what this procedure, and it's the way that like they also didn't even like fucking explain it.
Yeah,
they just were very vague
they
about
were just
like
saying, welcome. Maybe you'll even enjoy being a part of
the family.
Yeah,
yeah,
and yeah. But then we switch back to Rod now telling us with the police officers.
Cops,
you want to tell us how that goes down?
Yeah, and so he goes to the police and he's trying to tell this story. I love how he took the dog with him too. And he's telling
Sid, I'm watching this dog.
Literally,
cute, huh?
He's trying to tell the story to her. And I love how she's kind of like at first like, your boy's missing. He's like, no, my friend Crit. Like,
he's 26.
His presence in the movie is like that light sense of comedy that you need to kind of like pull you out of the tension, so that way when you go back into it you're like, oh fuck, this is a horror movie.
It almost makes you feel safe.
Yeah,
and then it pulls you back and like, oh shit, some wild nasty shit is happening. Yeah,
so I love how he's telling her that story, and then finally when he gets in there, she's like, okay, wait, hold on, and then it flashes to like the other cops and the three of them, just so that way she can get a good little laugh with the other cop guys, because they all obviously think like his story does sound cockamamie, like very crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but because it's like, who wants to believe that would be happening? But and then of course, because it's an addition of sex slaves, they're not just regular slaves; they're sex slaves.
the sex slaves makes it laughable.
Yeah,
and they're quite literally laughing him off.
Yeah,
And I love the line when he's going back in there and he's explaining to them. He's like, as a TSA agent, we got the same training as y'all detectives. We might even know more because we're dealing with some terrorist shit.
Yeah, literally. Probably,
yeah. Who knows?
But aren't they like their job is to profile people?
Yeah,
literally,
it is.
Yeah,
it's their whole job.
I've
seen it happen.
But yeah.
But anyways, they laugh Rod off, and he basically realizes like if he wants anything to be done, it's on his shoulders now. He has to do it himself. And so we flash to him taking some notes and stuff, and he's like sitting there. He's got all these notes, and he's got, fuck, magic ain't real, and he scratches out magic. And then this is where we get
he calls Rose, right? Yeah.
Well, he calls Chris's phone,
but it doesn't work.
And it does.
Or no,
work
she
this
picks
time.
it up. That's right. That's right. Duh.
And
she says that stupid line of like, he left his phone. I'm like, who does that? It's 2018.
What? You haven't seen him?
Yeah, this whole.
He left 2 days ago. Like
that whole moment. Yeah.
I don't know. And the way that her voice changes too, when she says Rod, and she's like, oh, Rod, and it's like you can hear that she's like, okay, I can manipulate this bitch because she's been working him the whole time.
Yeah, she has.
And was like ready to get him in as like some either scapegoat, like side story, like to frame him or something, and or to then later pull him in
eventually
later.
Get him later into this whole shindig. But yeah, it's the way that he's like telling her like, hold up, after she's like kind of giving him this, he already knows like something's weird about this, and she's like tell. He's like, hold up, just wait 1 second, because he wants to record the conversation, and when he comes back to record it, she obviously changes up, because I mean she's a psychotic bitch, but she's smart, and she knew probably either he had someone else listening or he's trying to record it, so that's when she switches up very quickly and is like basically trying to make it seem like he's
into her,
been trying to
she's
get
like,
her,
I know
and she's
you
like,
wanna
stop,
fuck me,
and
stuff, and it's like, whoa, and he's like, I'm trying to fuck. Why would anyone want to fuck you?
Yeah, like, literally, and then hangs up. He's like, you crazy ass bitch.
And he's like, God damn, she's a genius.
Yeah, but literally, because he knows too. It's funny.
He knows it. Yeah,
what she's doing, the shtick that she's playing.
Exactly, and that scene is just so unsettling as she acts scared with her voice, but her face is just completely stone cold.
Yeah,
shows like a complete lack of emotion. And it's just like, he also says the line, you talk too goddamn much, you're gonna say something. But yeah, she turns it around on him. But then we flash back to Chris now, and this is where we meet Jim on the screen, and he's
awaiting the medical procedure that they're about to go through, and that's when they're
just having a friendly chat before they murder Chris.
And he's letting him know that, and that's I think when he says like it's easier when the patients know what's happening. You know, it's supposed to have for a smoother transition. That's what they say, or something like that.
Yeah, and he says the phase 1 is hypnotism, which we found out. Phase 2 is the mental preparation, a pre-op of sorts, he says. And then phase 3 is the transplantation. And he says the sliver of you will be in there somewhere, aka the sunken place, and your existence will be merely as a passenger, as an audience. And then Chris is like, okay, fuck yeah, I see exactly how this is gonna work.
Yeah.
And then I think he says like why? Like, what is this happening? And he says, sorry, my notes just went up to the top, but it pans in on Jim's face, and he's saying, I want your eye.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see through your eyes. And that scene is just so creepy because it's just that low quality video that's happening on this, old television set. And it's creepy.
And at this point, I think somewhere in between that, he had noticed that because he was so nervous, he had been like scratching at the armrest, the arm of the chair, leather chair he's sitting in. And so he notices that there was like little cotton coming out of the chair. And so at this point, after Jim gets off of the video screen, the teacup thing comes back on to like try to get him to like go back into hypnosis, but and it's the way that seemingly like you'd think that he was hypnotized, but so whenever Jeremy comes back, well, first we see Dean setting up like the operating, right?
Yeah, and he has his like sterilized hands in front of his face, and then he pulls up his mask, and I was like, shouldn't you have
done that before?
Yeah, because now you just touched your face with your sterilized gloves. But whatever.
And so it's setting up that you get to see which I was like, ugh, yeah, I didn't like that.
I do like how you see the removal of the scalp through the glasses instead of a direct shot.
Oh yeah,
because it's like you still get the like full.
You still know what's happening. You get to kind of see it, but not necessarily seeing it because that's like a bit much.
It is
because even the removal of the skull, like the top part, was
and just
like,
watching it like
that's
fall.
Yeah,
it's nasty.
It's unsettling.
But
and so they're prepping Jim for the surgery, and that's whenever Jeremy goes back to collect Chris, and he's in there, and that's the way that like he's unstrapping Chris, and then he's doing something. He's getting the wheelchair,
check
something.
The IV on it.
And then we see Chris grabbing one of those like decorative orb balls, and I'm sure it's heavy and like hits Jeremy in the back of the head, knocks him down a little bit.
Because it drew blood the first time.
Yeah, and then he has to hit him one more time. But I'm like, at that point, I'm just like, come on, double tap. But he doesn't double tap.
He does later.
Yeah.
Make sure he extra dead.
And
that motherfucker is dead.
So then he's able to get away from Jeremy, and it's the way that then we cut to the operating room, and Dean's waiting for, Chris to come, or Jeremy to come in with Chris. And so, he goes out to look for him, and right as he steps into the hallway, I love that it's like very immediate too. He's just like,
well, he looks around. He looks both right and left.
Yeah. And then whenever he comes back right, it's like, yeah.
And at this point, we're having the opening song. It's come back in with a sort of reprise. You're still getting those whispers, but on a different soundtrack now. And so that was really cool. It's like tying it all together. It feels like it's really coming together.
Yeah.
But yeah, the symbolism of him being killed with that deer is like, yes, fuck that dad. And then something catches fire. I'm not really sure what caught fire.
It's the operating room. Something had fell, and so somehow it caught fire. I'm not sure. But yeah.
I was like, maybe
downstairs
there was something.
Ended up catching on fire.
But the whole place about to go up in flames.
And then we have Chris going upstairs, and that's when he runs into, Gerald.
When he immediately comes up the stairs, he sees Georgina. She runs off, but then he runs into Missy.
That's right.
That's the main encounter.
And so then it's the way that he sees the teacup, and like they both dart for it. He ends up being able to like smash it onto the floor, and then they have their little altercation where they're fighting.
She stabs him with scissors.
It's either scissors, like a little scalpel or something.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the way that
we love a good.
He's able to catch
stab.
it with his like scream.
Yeah.
Catch it with her hand, and he's like, I'm gonna survive this. And he's like just pushing it, and then is able to like one up her and get her.
Yeah, and she thuds. And then he fucking stabs her with that knife still through his hand. And then he goes, he keeps walking, knife still in hand.
Yeah.
When Jeremy's like, surprise, bitch.
Yeah. And
I'm not dead.
Jeremy tries to subdue him and is like choking him out. And so he's very smartly gets to the door to open it, knowing that Jeremy's going to like pull his leg up to close it, and he stabs him in the leg.
And then he
finally smashes his brains in.
Probably a little bit overkill, but fucking smashes him.
I'm sure you had no problem with this.
Yes.
Because you were like, no, do it.
It didn't, yeah.
Because usually you don't like heads being smashed in.
Yeah. I didn't see it, so I was like, yay! Smash his brains in!
And then finally he can fucking leave and tries to get out of the premises, but it's the way that and upstairs at this point it's the way that Rose is
Fruit Loops like a fucking psychopath individually while sipping her milk, and
weird.
She's essentially shopping for a new boyfriend.
Yeah,
she's like online shopping black men.
NCAA, like literally, and it's also too, like,
Boy, girl, you think you can pull one of them?
right? And it's just, I wonder whose choice that was to like choose her to eat the cereal like that in the milk, because that's like so like
well, even
conveying to her character
everything down to the outfit she is wearing. So it's like a disgusting. It's like,
and you notice the pictures on her wall, right?
Yeah, she immediately hung those bitches back up. She was ready, and she's in her like completely starched like white collared button down with that nasty fucking khaki combo pants, and it's such a just like that is like such a basic fucking white ass outfit, and it's so fitting for the scene. Yeah, that costume designer. Good.
Knew it was
amazing.
Happening. Yeah.
Because it just makes it so much more gross.
And then eventually he's able to get out, but it's the way that
he hits Georgina with the car,
right?
And he's like, "Fuck, don't kill it." He hits her with the car, and he's fighting with himself.
It was that thud that when he hit Georgina, though, that finally Rose is like, "Wait, what's happening?" So she's like, "Fuck!" Takes off her little headphones because she had noise canceling headphones on, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And then is going downstairs or whatever. Then he goes and gets Georgina because he's like having that whole thing of like with his mom, you know, he didn't want to leave her, and so he has her in the car, and then
and by him going back for her, he's essentially making up for his past.
Yeah.
And so that's like it's a really big
metaphor. Strong
moment for him. But yeah, when she comes to, she's like, "You ruined my house.
You ruined my house," literally. And you can at that point see the scar where they had cut her head open to put the grandma's brain in there.
Exactly.
And so that point too, we have
crash.
We have the crash, but isn't that because that's right. We have them crashing because she's trying to, you know, fight with him in the car, and then he's trying to get out of the car, and that's whenever Rose comes out with the shotgun and is shooting at him.
Just like you mentioned in the beginning.
Yep. And he's trying to escape, and it's the way that she's like, get him, Grandpa.
Yeah, Grandpa comes running by. Get him, Grandpa.
Yeah. Get him, Grandpa. Get him.
That's right.
So, yeah, Grandpa's doing his track star thing and is running after him, and then he catches up with him. They get into a little scuffle.
But Chris is too smart.
And he uses his phone to flash the light in his face, and he gets
you can
Walter
see his scar there.
To come to, and then that's whenever Rose comes up and is getting her shotgun ready, and then she's about to essentially shoot Chris, but then the Grandpa Walter is like, let me do it.
Yeah.
And so he grabs it and then shoots Rose, which like at that point I was like, claps, yay, confetti.
Then he cocks it again, and you can see the like fear on Chris's face, like fuck,
like what's about to happen. But then he's like,
he immediately turns that shit on himself.
Because at that point too, like if that's already happened to you, like unfortunately,
I don't blame him. Yeah.
Well, and too, like what? There's no, you're kind of.
Like maybe you can be in control, but then there's always that feeling that someone else is in there.
There's a whole person's brain in your head.
And I'm sure that you've been waiting to die for so many years.
So he's out.
Yeah, so he
himself,
did that.
but it's the way that Rose is still alive, and they have this altercation where like he's like obviously wanting to kill her, but he can't kill her because he's just that good of a human soul that he can't kill another soul.
And the moment he comes up to her, she's like saying, "It's me, it's me. Yeah. Like I love you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "You fucking lying
manipulative
bitch.
Ass bitch." Yeah.
And he starts choking her, and then the way that she smiles as
he's choking her, it's so weird. Yeah.
It's just like, and then the fucking flashing lights show up, and
it's the way that everybody's thinking like, oh fuck, if this is actual cops, like how could this end like this? Like what? But lo and behold, it's Rod. Thank you, TSA.
Yeah. And she's like, before she realizes it, she's like, help. And then Rod's like, Chris. And then she realizes like, oh, okay, this fucking Rod, like we've lost.
Yeah.
And when Chris gets in the car, it's the way Rod's basically like, I told you so. And it's like, Rod, this is not the goddamn time for this. Come on.
Love Rod though.
So this was actually the second. Well, there was an alternate ending, aka the first ending. And so this was the second ending.
Oh, what was the first ending?
So originally it was supposed to be the police. And Chris was supposed to get arrested.
Blamed for all of it.
Spend time in jail, and Rod was the only person who knew, but no one would listen. And basically Rod is like sitting there trying to like talk to Chris about it, but Chris is a martyr, and he's just like, you know, like they're all fucking dead. This can't keep happening. I'm like, this has happened. This is how it's gonna be. Like, so it's been 6 months already. Like, stop fighting for this. clearly nothing is going to change. They are never going to believe me, a black guy, over the fact that 4 white people are dead.
Yeah.
Or 4 white people are dead.
Mm-hmm.
And along with 2 other individuals. And so he's basically like
which one had a self-inflicted gunshot wound, so they could say that they did it together.
Yeah. And so essentially Chris is saying, like, Rod, this is a lost cause. Like, you know, I love you and I appreciate you for doing this, but, like, no, this is it. So in the end, it was originally supposed to be, like a super strong commentary, like, on how,
because that's how it would end up.
Yes.
If that were to happen in real life.
And the reason all of us had that sinking gut feeling as the flashing lights rolled up is because, that was the original intent.
And which we all knew it was going to happen. Yeah.
But then he's like, no, you know, maybe we needed to give a little bit of a lighter and, like, you know, give him a little bit of something. Like, he just went through all this shit. Like, let's give him that. Like,
let's not end it on that dark of a note.
And it was a great ending. And I loved
and that's a subtle way of getting people to be like to provoke thought, and also to like to give it a good ending, but also psych us out because we still know what would happen. Like, we don't have to see it.
Had that been any other person,
we don't have to see it because we've seen it for the past all these years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, we don't need to see it again in cinema.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you mean.
And so that was the actual ending that was supposed to happen. And but that's fucking Get Out. A wonderful, wonderful piece of cinema.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Coagula is like when things coagulates, it's like a massive coagulated matter. So
that's what they were trying to hint at.
Yeah, it essentially here it's just saying that in Get Out it just is their whole thing. So I don't know if the actual meaning of like coagulate and a massive coagulated matter maybe makes me think like that essentially they have been forced into their own little mass. And now I don't know. That's maybe me thinking too much into it.
Thought provoking.
But
leave it at that.
Yeah. So I think it's boo time, huh?
It's boo time.
Tell me how many boos you would give this.
I would give this, in terms of story, in terms of what it actually means, in terms of horror, all around experience, how I know that this will be something that people will talk about for years to come because it's like such a strong commentary on like our culture right now. A 4.5. Yeah.
I'd give it a 5.
A 5?
I would give this a 6 if I could. A 10. I fucking love this film. I loved it so much the first time I saw it. And now it's... I had asked some other people today about like why, like if they had seen this and whether or not they liked it. And for the most part, everyone had, which I thought was wonderful because many times people don't watch horror films. And while this is not a slap you in the face horror, it's more of like a psychological thriller kind of thing.
I can see that.
But it is horror. Like the acts that happened were horrific.
Horrendous. Yeah.
Yeah. It is terrifying. And everything, the way that it's just a very subtle, again, elevated presentation. And I
elevated horror.
Absolutely love every aspect of this film. I do. Like, there were no scenes that I was like, I could have done without that. None of it. I thought everything was so well intended.
Am I being harsh with my 4.5?
I just really love this film. I really, really loved it. It is my favorite of the 3 so far that have been produced by Jordan Peele.
Okay.
By far. Like,
I'm excited for his new one, Nope, coming out as well.
I'm excited to see that. But I did ask around, so I do have some other ratings from people who don't actually typically watch horror. So the lowest one was from a friend of mine named Levin. He gave it a 3, and he's like, it's better than most horror films. And he looked at me because he was like, I don't like horror, and most horror films kind of suck. And I was like, I can't necessarily agree with you because I like them.
Because there's probably like some intellectual like side to this movie, like, you know, the thought provokingness, like, to where it's not just like a slasher or some demon possession kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was like, there is more to think about. He was like, and so overall, it was like better than most horror films. He was like, I wouldn't necessarily call it maybe a horror. I don't know. And I was like, okay, I get that. And then my friend Brittany gave it a 4, and she said it was creepy, but not necessarily scary. She said she wanted it to be a little bit more scary, but she's like, overall, it was still a great film. And she'd really enjoyed watching it. And I know for a fact they never watch horror films because her partner is absolutely terrified of like can't even watch The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Like so scared of that stuff.
That's crazy. That's so unfathomable for me to even think about. Like,
oh yeah, to me I'm just like,
what?
This is, I fall asleep to this every night.
Literally. It's like that TikTok of like them like, do you mind if I play like noise for me to fall asleep? And like, yeah, and it's like people screaming like sounds of hell. Like
it's like comforting.
Literally.
Exactly. And then I asked one more friend, my friend Blair, and she gave it a 4.5 as well. She said she like the weird auction scene is the one that like stood out to her the most, and she was like, it was just
such a big social
it's
commentary.
so creepy and everything, and then just the acceleration from then on to the end she really liked. And then overall, now most of them hadn't seen this film in quite a while, but again, just the fact that so many people, because if I was to ask any of them had they seen this horror film, they would absolutely tell me no. But that's why it's like I even asked, because I was like, Get Out has been seen by horror lovers.
Got a 98.
And horror lovers not like alike, you know. Most everyone has seen this
and
film.
Also too, when it came out, it had a pretty big buzz around it as well.
Because it's so fucking good.
It merits the buzz.
It does. That 98%, bump it up, tomato meter.
That
it's
84
100.
public critic whatever
86.
reception. Yep.
Yeah, but here you have it. 5 and a 4.5. 4.5 and a 5. Sorry, we always say yours first. Duh.
It's okay.
And from your BooBaes, though.
From your BooBaes.
That's right. Get Out.
Yes.
2017. Jordan Peele production.
Was that 2017?
Yes.
Dang, already?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're right. Yeah, dang. Yeah. It was.
Yeah,
I think
it's 2017.
Yeah, I just like, for some reason, still feel like that just only came out like a year ago.
It does feel very recent, but time is basically irrelevant now.
It's very irrelevant.
I can't keep up with it.
Anyways, you guys.
As always,
we are in the lovely Rogue Media Studio Network. We are Network Studios. They always take care of us here. Make sure you're checking out all the other podcasts I've got going on.
Yeah, lots of great ones. Anything that you need. And you want ghost stories, you want comics, we got them all. And you can
definitely
listen to them and listen to us. Listen to everyone.
Literally, please.
Wherever you get your podcast.
That would be
big ones, Apple
or Spotify.
That's right. And a whole slew of others. And if you are listening there, please do not forget to rate,
review,
and subscribe.
Because that's the only way we can get ahead in life.
That's right. And we read them all. So please give me something else to read.
Please leave your reviews. I can only make up so many fake emails.
Wait, are any
Just kidding. No, they're not me. Oh. Can you imagine? You get like all these. They were all me.
Oh, I love it.
I'm just kidding. No.
I should do that. One of them is me. Oh, well. I was like, they feel like my friends. It's because you are my friend and I am my friend.
I am my own friend. Yeah. And then just
you can follow us.
You can follow us on Instagram at BooBaes Podcast.
That's right.
And that's all.
One word. And that's BOOBAES, BooBaes.
Yes.
Because we are your baes.
Not your boo babes. And because it also sounds like boobies. BooBaes.
Boobies. Yes. We love boobies. On that note, though.
Bye, baes.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Mike.
and we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Bros and Foes and Heroes. Gonna tell you about Bros and Foes and Heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.